for the puppy picture. Okay. Calls to order the meeting of the Salem School Committee for July 28th, 2025 at 7 p.m. This meeting is taking place in person at 29 Highland Avenue, room 227. You can also join via Zoom using the link posted in the meeting agenda. We do have one member participating remotely, so all votes will be by roll call vote. Our first item on the agenda is approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Seconded.
Motion made by Member Miranda, seconded by Member Campbell. A roll call vote. Member Campbell.
Yes.
Member Cruz.
Yes.
Member Hoffman.
Yes.
Member Miranda.
Yes.
And myself. Yes, the matter carries unanimous. Public comment. If you wish to participate in the public comment portion of the meeting, please approach the podium. The school committee would like to hear from the public on issues that affect the school district and are within the scope of the committee's responsibilities. Spanish interpretation is available for anyone who needs it. The members of the school committee would like to remind the public that Salem Public School students regularly attend school committee meetings. We encourage all meeting participants to model respectful and productive public discourse for our young learners. Is there any public comment in the room? Any public comment on Zoom? Seeing none. We have approval of the consent agenda. This is the minutes from the school committee meeting of June 17th, of the school committee retreat on June 21st, approval of a field trip for the Carleton fifth graders to the farm school in September, approval of the warrants of June 19th and June 26th, approval of the warrants of July 9th, July 16th, July 17th, and July 23rd.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Seconded.
Motion made by Member Miranda, seconded by Member Campbell. A roll call vote. Member Cruz.
Yes.
Member Hoffman.
Yes.
Member Miranda.
Yes.
Member Campbell.
Yes.
Myself, yes. The matter carries unanimous. We have no student representatives report unless you have anything to share on behalf of our students.
Can I just share quickly that there are a group of students from my committee that are working as part of the Student Voice Project over the summer in creating some materials and supports for newcomers at Salem High School. And I'm hopeful that our new representative will be, maybe not at the next meeting, but at our first meeting in September. But it is encouraging that there are 5 members of the group who are meeting over the summer. With Taylor McDonald, who runs our out-of-school time programming. So we're going to get I will say this year, I'm excited that we'll have a running start to the school year as opposed to waiting a couple weeks till we get settled or months before we get started. So, and my hope is that there's regular interaction between the school committee and the reps this year, or the student advisory committee. So that's my update.
All right. Superintendent's report.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. Happy summer to everyone. I did tell a group of students today that, and I didn't get a round of applause, that school starts a month from today. So we're very excited. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
right.
you. I think there's some parents that might be clapping, but so.
Member Cruz wanted to weigh in on the last thing about the student report.
Oh, sure.
Message me.
Thank you, Mayor. And Superintendent, appreciate the update. Great to hear that the advisory council is meeting over the summer. And I certainly agree that it's going to be great to engage with them. And I'd just like to remind folks that last year around the same time, we had set a goal of coming into compliance with the state law of hosting the bi-monthly meeting between the school committee and the student advisory group. So I'm hopeful, this year as we set the course, we have a student representative in place that we can achieve that for the kiddos so that they have an opportunity to engage with us as a committee formally through a public meeting. So if we could put that as one of their first charges, is really organizing themselves around an introductory meeting with members of the school committee, Superintendent, I think that would be worthwhile.
Duly noted.
Thank you. All right.
Okay, a couple of things before I get into the state of the schools. I just want to note that I just want to congratulate our new Executive Director of Teaching and Learning, Sonia Lowe, who's in the audience here. I'm really excited to work with her in her new capacity, give her a little, she's been a long-standing educator in the Salem Public Schools since 2014, in multiple roles, including teacher, coach, and curriculum director for the secondary schools, and happy to have her in this new role. And I think, when are you officially in your new role?
Maybe like next week?
Next week. Okay. Is that right? Or now?
It was effective immediately.
Effective immediately, okay. And so we're looking forward to working with Sonia in that capacity, given her strong knowledge of the work happening in Salem and her strong understanding of our schools and our staff. So looking forward to that. I do want to note that I have a flyer here for the Mental Makeover, has a event this Sunday, August 3rd at Salem Common. I know the Teachers Union is actively involved with this organization, but the mayor and I are also involved because we'll be jumping into the lake, or not the lake, sorry, it's an ocean.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Lake would be warmer,
Yeah,
right, Mayor?
it would be.
Mental Makeover was started by graduates of the Salem Public Schools in support of increased mental health, wellness, and suicide prevention. The work they do is really inspirational. So if anybody is interested in supporting, they have a walk on the 3rd. What time is that, Ann? I don't see it here.
I believe it starts at, the introduction start at 9:30.
9:30, okay.
Kicks off around 9:45.
And-
Lots going on the common if people want to get there early.
Yes. So hope to see folks there. And then the last thing is I do want to just note that today we had a chance to say goodbye to the students from Ota, Japan, who come every I know the city also had a event for them, a luncheon for them, I think last week. It is truly a remarkable relationship that Salem has with Ota, and it was heartwarming to see the tears from students from both Japan and from the Salem Public Schools as they were saying goodbye to, I thought they had been there for weeks and months, but it is really just a week, and the bonds they make with families. And so many of our families, many of our staff welcomed these students into their homes as well. And it's a remarkable relationship that I think goes back to 1993, or no, maybe longer.
Yeah, 34 years.
34 years. And I had a chance to connect with the Mr. Salerno from the Salerno Auto Shop, who was the assistant superintendent at the time, and he was there. He was there as he was one of the folks that started the relationship with Ota back in the day. So it's a pretty remarkable relationship, and appreciate the fact that the city of Salem is such a great supporter of that relationship with our sister city. With that, I do want to go into our state of the schools, and every year I have given an update on where we stand as a school district. So I don't know if you want to cue that up, Mark. And I just want to go before starting this, I do want to point out that we don't have all the data in from this school year. For instance, MCAS scores from the spring are not publicly available. We have some indication, but it's embargoed at this point as a school district. But so some of it is, some of the data here is not yet, has not yet been confirmed. But I do want to give you a sense of where we are as we close the last school year and as we enter this upcoming school year. What's of particular note is that we are entering the last year of our strategic plan. And so we've set goals and targets for 3 years, and we're coming into our 3rd year. This is a presentation a version of this presentation I gave to our in our school leadership retreat at the end of June. And so this is the same information that I shared with our administrators, and I want to make sure that the public and the school committee has this information. We'll be updating you as we go through the fall with some of this data. You know what our values are, so I'm not going to read them to you. I will note that one of the things we want to elevate, and you can see now on the walls of this room, is our portrait of a graduate in 3 languages, English, Spanish, and Portuguese. And we do want to elevate this portrait, which it has existed in Salem since 2020, but we are now resurfacing what we want to see our students, the skill sets we want our students to have as they leave us. And so you're going to see us as a district plan more towards these skills. A lot of our high school, Salem High School and New Liberty in particular, do a fair amount already with the portrait of graduate, but we want to start having conversations district-wide about that, what that means as you map it all the way down to pre-kindergarten. This was not developed by me alone. It wasn't developed by just a few people. There was a process that engaged staff members, that engaged community members as the high schools were going through their redesign in 2018 to 2020. And what emerged was critical thinking, creative problem solving, collaboration, communication, awareness, and cultural competence as the skill sets and that we wanted our graduates to have as they crossed the finish line and received their diploma upon graduation. So I just want to you're going to hear me talk more about this in the coming year, because we do think that this is an important way of moving beyond just just the MCAS scores or just the piece of paper that is a diploma. What are the real skills, knowledge, and talents that we want our young people to have as they leave the Salem Public Schools? All right, so these are just some photos. These are real-life Salem Public Schools photos from the last school year of different things that are happening and things that we should be proud of, that we all should be proud of. And in this, you can see pictures from graduation. You can see a picture from our pre-K programming. You could see our school leaders who are now all returning for a second year in a row, which is, or a third year in a row, I should say, which is unprecedented that we have everybody returning again. You have the fact that we had multiple schools of recognition labeled by the department last year. We had a huge emphasis on writing. Last year, you see the young man in the on the top who's got pen to paper or pencil to paper, which is something we're obviously committed to. We've done a lot. We're trying to turn over more agency and voice to students. You can see the group of students. Those are middle school students who are talking about their learning, and that picture of everybody around each other. In the bottom left-hand corner is the teacher prom. That the educator prom that's held every year, which is many of our staff of color and the growing number of staff of color that we have as a school system. And of course, you see the picture of the potential design for the new Salem High School. So wanted to make sure, we celebrate a system that we think is moving to pursue excellence, and that will continue to be our theme. That will be our theme as we head into the upcoming school year. We still have our four core priorities, I should say: elevating learning, empowering educators, centering belonging, and strengthening our foundation. Okay, so I just want to give you a quick update. You can read this on your own. But this is on priority one. These are the goals that we've set out as a school system, and we're well on our way. Where it says MCAS in parentheses, that's because the latest data we have for that data point is the 2024 MCAS. If it doesn't say MCAS next to it under actual spring 25, that's our STAR data, which is our internal assessment data that is correlated to the MCAS. So you can see that our growth, we're progressing. We had some of the highest growth I've ever seen at the high school level last year on the MCAS. It'll be hard to replicate that 2 years in a row, but you can see that our growth has been pretty solid, both in grades 3 to 8, but certainly in grade 10. If you look at the proficiency rates, our actual spring 2025 in ELA is based on STAR, and that 32% in math is based also on STAR in grades 3 to 8. The ELA data and the math data for grade 10 are based on the MCAS from last year. Access performance, our preliminary data is very promising on access, which and we think that we have met our 3-year goal, or that we will meet our 3-year goal. Advanced coursework is the percentage of students who are enrolled in higher level courses in 11th and 12th grade that are college credit courses, they're advanced placement courses. And we believe, this is a pretty, Mark and his team just put the numbers together, we think we're in the low 70s. So that means 70% of juniors and seniors in the Salem Public Schools across all 3 schools have engaged in some level of advanced coursework, which is high and actually exceeds what our goal was from the strategic plan. Our graduation rates are on track, but we're not where we want to be. We had set a goal for 88%, as of not this past school year, because it lags 1 year behind, because students have until October of the year to finish up, so we still have students finishing. But last 2024, 81.6% of our students graduated graduated from high school in 4 years. That's a 4-year graduation rate. There are students that will finish in 5 years and some in 6 years. Parent confidence, we don't have that data yet because our survey has not closed yet. We just distributed our parent survey for this school year. Under priority 2, empowering educators, we are pleased with the fact that our retention rate dipped a little bit from the year before, but that was before we settled the contract. So many of staff have already made their decision. So I hope that our retention rate is even higher going into this year. We anticipate it will be. I can only go based on the number of openings that we've had for this school year, which are, in my 5 years here, have been the fewest number of openings we have going from one year to the next, which is a good sign. Some of that's related to the economy. Some of that's related to our contract, I think, as well. In terms of increasing the percentage of educators and staff who represent ethnic diversity of our students, you'll hear a presentation about this right after I finish today. We have pretty much flatlined here, even though we saw major increases over the last 5 years. I am a little worried that this has stagnated, and we're going to talk about that in the next presentation. We did see improvements in staff well-being, but we're not yet where we want to be. And same with staff belonging. And we have seen over the last 3 years an increase in perception of the amount and quality of feedback that staff, that staff have received. We're not, again, we're just below where we targeted, but we have made improvements from where we started. Under centering belonging for students, I'm really proud of the work we've done with chronic absenteeism and dropout. We have really smashed where I expected to be at this time. We're right on track for our chronic rates, and our dropout rates exceeded what our 3-year goal was. I think the place that I'm most concerned about of all the data points is the percentage of students who feel valued is below where I would want to be right now. It has improved a little bit, but not significantly. Some of it is, it's hard, surveys are what they are, and some students, I don't know that, I don't know that all students take the surveys as seriously as we want, but I will say it is directional, in my opinion. And so the fact is, not enough students are telling us that they feel valued in school. And I think that's a place we have to double down as a school district. It surprises me a little bit because all the other indicators are going in the right direction. It's just, I think, it compels us to want to dig in deeper about understanding why that's the case. We did have more students surveyed on Panorama this year than we have had over the last 3 years. So I think this is a better indication, this 49% of students who say they feel valued, of where our kids, but that's still not, 50% of students who don't feel valued is something that we have to dig into.
Can I ask
Sure.
a question about that? So is that data available by grade level?
It is.
Okay.
And it's available by school. Ellen is the expert on that, so if there's any specific questions, but it is available by grade level, it's available by school. Yep.
Okay, thanks. Yep, Member Cruz.
I think when we've looked at Panorama data in the past regarding these types of questions, there were 2 data points that I remember we took a hard look at. One was around this, students who feel valued, but then the other was whether or not students had either a trusted adult in the building, and I know that relationships with educators is kind of central to how students see themselves. So I guess I would want to see those types of questions about culture, belonging for students broken out a little bit more, because
Sure.
it's hard to discern what that 49% means without looking at some of those other questions too.
Yeah, we can definitely share that data with you, yeah. The family's reporting that this child's school is a good fit. We don't have that yet for this year. We will have that for you soon. We'll do a review of that data in the fall. The risk ratio is trending in the right direction. This is looking at referrals for students of color and students with disabilities. And what our goal was to have a risk ratio.
Kate, did you want to add?
Oh,
Sorry.
I was just going to say, one of the things that we're planning on doing in the coming year is more regular pulse checks around things like belonging, so that we're not just doing a big survey at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year, that we're collecting monthly data, like 5 to 6 questions that center on some of the social emotional learning that we're doing at the schools, so that we can have more actionable data throughout the course of the year. So I just wanted to add that.
We are seeing, while we still have an overrepresentation of students of color and students with disabilities who are receiving discipline referrals, the number is headed in the right direction for us as a district. I mean, we really want to be as close to 1 as possible. And we did see an improvement over where we were the year before, and we're ahead of where we targeted for this school year. Again, like, that data is only as good as what gets entered in the system, but it is directional in the sense that we are seeing, there's still overrepresentation, but it's not at the levels that we've seen historically. So there's an improvement there. Around strengthening the foundation, we did survey our school leaders, administrators around our central office departments. We got a very favorable response. I don't know if people are just trying to be nice, but I do think there's some strong, I think our departments do an excellent job of supporting our schools. There was a lot of constructive feedback, but overall, we saw favorable support for the work of our central office departments and how they support schools. It's something we work really hard to do, is to provide stronger customer service to them, and it does help us get better to get feedback from our school leaders around the quality of support they get. There is a question in the Panorama survey to teachers around adequate access, staff access to materials and information. We had 65% of staff give a favorable rating around that, which, again, I'd like to see it higher than that, but in my experience in school districts, that's pretty high in terms of having access to, there's always going to be people that don't feel like they have everything they need. That's ahead of where we expected to be. We had 51% as our goal at the end of 3 years. The one area that I have really, I'll be honest, we don't have good data on is how to measure cross-collaboration across departments, and so I have nothing there. So I'll just be honest, we just have struggled as a district. It's something I want to revisit in the next strategic plan, because that was something that was important to us, but we've not found some way of really, we think there is more collaboration across departments, but we don't have a good way of communicating that to all of you. The response to work orders within 2 days, it is 100% because we do respond to the email that we receive. That doesn't mean that we fix the issue. So we're going to get more nuanced in the way we measure. But from people are getting a response, it doesn't mean that it's been fixed. So we don't really, I don't know if you want to say anything more to that, Elizabeth.
Yeah. From a customer service standpoint, it is 100% of requests that get responded to within 2 days, usually within less than that. We have been working with Operations Hero this summer to be able to run a report on how long it takes to close, as the superintendent said, how long it takes to close a project, and to be able to categorize them into things that we could close quickly, things that might take a little longer, things that are dependent on supplies coming in. So we expect to be able to report on closing work orders as soon as the year gets underway.
All right, and just a couple of reflections. This is just high-level reflections that I have about some of our successes and challenges. I'll just, you can see we are moving in the right direction around achievement in the district. I mean, we have moved out of the bottom 10% of districts in the state, which is a real credit to our educators and to our schools and the work that our academics team has done, our special education team has done, our ML team, and so really proud of that work. We are really pleased that more staff are getting quality feedback. That isn't true in every school, but we've seen a move for more ongoing observation and feedback across the schools around, I would say, the majority of schools. There's still some schools that we have concerns about. And I'm really proud of the work that we've done around chronic absenteeism, because it speaks to more than just we're chasing down people sending letters, to homes. It means that kids want to come to school more. It means that we have supports in place at school. It means that we have experiences that they want to be at. I do think it communicates a lot about kids' interests and connection to school if they're coming to school on a more regular basis. And, I in particular I look at Collins as a great example of that over the last 2 years around their chronic rates. Kids want to be in school more than ever, and their rates are still better than most suburban high schools around Salem. So I'm really proud of the work that our schools are doing in that area. We still have a lot of work to do, and I'll say that until, that'll never change, that we have work to do. And our MLs and students with disabilities are still achieving proficiency at lower rates, and that's looking at any data points that we have. We obviously want to see that continue to improve. We've seen stagnation in English language arts data in pockets across the system. I'm hopeful for the MCAS this year in English language arts, but have seen stagnation up until now. I think we did a lot of really targeted work in writing, which I think is as important as anything we can do in schools, is teach kids how to write. And not because we want them to pass the MCAS, but because we want them to be able to we want them to be able to present themselves in writing, both for college and career. It's as important a skill as we all know, AI notwithstanding. It is important that kids know how to write. We are seeing, and I think this is important for the committee, it's one of my goals, is we are seeing a dip in outcomes on the different metrics we use from pre-K into the kindergarten, first and second grade. We have developed a really robust pre-K experience in the Salem Public Schools, but we are concerned that hasn't what happens after is sometimes pitched below what our kids are capable of doing. I think we're still teaching as if kids didn't have this amazing pre-K experience, and we need to build from that and continue to. I think we've supported and provided more resources to our pre-K teachers than we have to our K through 2 teachers, and that is an important focus of ours. And you saw it in my goals that I presented a few months back. I do worry about stagnation of teacher diversification and retention of teachers of color. I'm not as worried about overall retention because I think we are headed in the right direction. Again, the contract helped us a lot. The fact is that I think conditions are not perfect, but better across schools. But I do worry about, with some of the cuts that we had to make, some of the people that we lost were people that were on waivers, people that were on emergency licensures, and disproportionately that can be staff of color, and we know that, and I think we have to own that. I mean, I have to own that as part of our work, and again, we're going to hear about that in a moment here. I worry about student sense of belonging and well-being. Even though I'm surprised by the data, but the data is the information we have. So we have to. I want to better understand how we can make sure that kids feel more connected to our schools, even though the attendance data communicates that the survey data doesn't exactly tell us, and I want to better understand that. And then the last bullet is I do worry that our students are leaving while we're graduating more kids, and we're giving them more rigorous experiences like advanced coursework. It doesn't mean that they have a defined and rigorous college or career plan. And I think that's as important as anything that we do. It's important as passing the MCAS, getting their diploma, but the diploma has to mean something, and it still doesn't yet mean that they have a strong plan about what they're doing. There's too many kids that are unknown when they leave us, are unknown about their plans. Now, whether they go into career or college, I want them to feel strongly about their plan, that we've prepared them to have a choice, and that they are passionate about whatever plan they're going in. We're not there yet. And so I have that here as a top challenge for us to continue to work on with our college and career going work, not just at the high school level, starting all the way from when students enter middle school all the way through.
Member Miranda?
Can you get a little bit more specific on the pre-K to early childhood grades and what you mean?
Sure. I'm going to turn that over to Kate.
Can you repeat your question? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
I'm just looking for a little bit more specific information around what Steve was highlighting. I'm sorry, Dr. Strike was highlighting
okay.
as a top challenge when it comes to pre-K and some type of gap or something that's happening.
Yeah, I think, we've just upped our game pretty significantly, and it's not just in the Salem Public Schools, but across the community, because our work in pre-K, which is so important and powerful, is that we are partnering with community-based organizations. So we have 5 community-based organizations in our, we call it the Salem Pre-K Partnership, so our little network. So there are 180 kids in those classrooms that are getting a boost around access to high-quality curriculum, coaching from really expert coaches from the Salem Public Schools to work with those educators in the classroom. We have better data on how kids are doing, so we're making data-informed decisions and providing interventions and so forth. So I think the experience, more kids have access to high-quality pre-K. They're coming in with a higher level of readiness for kindergarten, and we just have to do some vertical alignment with our teachers. From our schedule, our pre-K and kindergarten teachers get out earlier than first grade through 12, and so we seized on the opportunity to bring them together for 2 half-days in the spring to do some professional development. We have that opportunity again in the fall, so we want to do more joint professional development, and it was part professional development, and it was part allowing them to work together to talk about kids they're receiving, look at the data, so that they have a better understanding of what kids are able to do in a way that we haven't really had good reads on kids and their both academic, social, emotional development from pre-K. So there's more work to be done, but that's the hope, that we can continue to do some vertical work with the educators, both in the Salem Public Schools and in those partner programs, and sort of keep a high bar for kids and have a better understanding of what kids are coming into kindergarten ready to do.
Can I ask a follow-up? So do we have data on the differences between the kids that are in like the Salem Public Schools pre-K as opposed to partnership?
So that's a great question, and it's something that's so we just finished a strategic planning process around early education, and one of the things we know we need to do better is have a centralized data warehouse where we're collecting this data. So we do, the kids that are in the CPPI classrooms, which are the classrooms that are supported by the state grant, and supported by the work that I was just describing. Those students are assigned a SACID, which is a state identifier, and so we can follow and track their data better. We just have to work with we have to get some data sharing agreements with the partner programs, involve parents to let them know, what we're doing and why, so that we can better track the data of the kids in the partnership and then kids that are coming into Salem Public Schools who may have had a pre-K experience, just not in our partner program, so that we can better answer that very question as well as others. And so that's work that we're going to start this fall.
Thank you.
Member Cruz?
Steve, I appreciate you just going through some of these priorities. I know you said we're going to get to the pieces with educator diversification and the challenges around just broader staff retention. I think the one thing that I would just name for the committee and then our work as a district is, DESE has started implementing the Educator Diversity Act, so we know like alternative assessments are still coming down the pipeline for alternatives to MTEL. Some of those are available now. So, I just wonder where are the opportunities for us to make sure that we're engaging with staff about what those alternative assessments look like as they get rolled out. There's a batch that got put out at the end of May, and there are more that are being developed in my most recent conversation with DESE. I know Dr. Zreik, you had connected me with one of our educators here in Salem who wasn't able to get an extension on the emergency license. And I had a good conversation with the folks at DESE, but I do think we need to make a concerted effort to try to advocate for some of those educators that might not be able to get licensure. There's some other things in the law that I think are important, Steve, that we definitely need to get started. So, one of the things that it calls for is an educator diversification plan. And that's supposed to come from either a diversity officer team or from your educator diversity council, which we haven't formally appointed yet, and that's an advisory council to both the school committee and the superintendent. So I think as we think about the talent that we have here in the district, folks that are hiring managers that have been working on diversity, equity, and inclusion related initiatives regarding our staff, this is the time to think about the formal governance supports that we could be providing as a committee to try to help reach the goal, knowing that we're doing this in the context of we have a budget crisis. The commission to study what's happening with Chapter 70, it's not going to move fast enough to address our issue. So I think the risk that we run is with things happening with the budget is that our educators of color are more junior staff, and that if we do have rifts, there's a likelihood that we're going to lose some folks that we've worked really hard to grow. I say all that to mean that I think getting the council in the planning process up and running would be super important for us to understand, what we're going to be able to do with a leaner workforce to be able to still work towards our goals around diversification.
Yeah, and I think Veronica will touch on that in the next presentation about the council, about as she poses that as a question in her presentation about that could be an important next step for the district, to your point. I mean, I think we've seen improvement, but we're plateauing. And that's important to acknowledge. And I think I do want to call out that the STU has been a great partner in this work. AFT, Massachusetts in general, has been, which I've appreciated. And the fact is, if you look at some of the work that's helped turn around the culture, again, take the Collins School as an example, the staff has diversified tremendously over the time that the school has started to turn around, and that makes a huge difference in the experience of our students. So I don't say this because, it's not politically expedient anymore to say this, but the reality is that it does make a difference in outcomes for kids when you have a more diverse staff. And so I do think that we have to continue to see it as a lever for school improvement. And what if you look at this next slide, these priorities here, and I'm calling out that if you look under priority 2, the last bullet, each school in Salem for their school improvement plan has to set goals and action plans around these areas. We've identified, and you can see that for the first time this year, under priority 2, we're asking in their school improvement plans that they set a focus around retention and diversification of educators, right? So we're calling it out in their school improvement plans this year. And so you can see under priority 1, we're asking them to set goals for their regular data meetings. We're focusing on academic monitoring and lesson internalization, which is like the preparation around ensuring that kids have more ownership over their learning and agency in their learning. As Kate just mentioned, early literacy is a goal that we want the elementary schools to set specific goals around their action plans for early literacy. Under priority 2, we still think it's really important that our staff gets quality feedback, meaningful feedback, that they still have input around professional development, and finally, around the conditions for retention and diversification. Finally, in priority 3, we are setting goals. Ellen and her team have helped set goals around explicit social emotional learning to happen in schools, that schools have action plans around engagement so students are not chronically absent. And then finally, as I mentioned, for the high school, middle school, what are their post-secondary planning goals for the upcoming school year? And so you will see in their plans, their improvement plans, which they're in the midst of writing right now, that this is what we're asking them to center their plans on for this coming school year. And then finally, the work ahead is, these are just 2 quotes that come from a text that we've read, Teach Like a Champion. It's from the introduction of it, which is a book that's been around for a while. But the introduction to the new iteration of the book is, I love this first quote about operating as if the young people were capable of greatness in every classroom. I often think that our kids are capable of so much more than what we asked them to do. And the fact is, we've said in Salem Public Schools, kids can do hard things. We don't ask them to do hard things, and they become disengaged when they know we're not actually asking them to reach their potential. And we have to act like they have the potential to be doctors, lawyers, teachers, whatever they want to be, but we have to push them with warmth, grace, and humanity to work harder than they may be inclined to. And kids respond to that. And I know that when I think back to my teachers, the only ones I remember are the ones that made me work harder and who believed that I could be something more than what I believed in myself. And then finally, when we start talking about equity, at the end of the day, it's about being able to achieve excellence in reading, writing, science, and math, right, in academics. And I don't mean MCAS data. You can use any measure you want. But our kids, if we're really going to be an organization focused on equity and be anti-racist, then every kid should leave us with the skill set to be excellent in school, right? And we're not always, and equity does start with achievement. And again, by achievement, that's why I think the Portrait of a Graduate is so important, because it defines another way of looking at achievement than just taking a test. I do think that's part of it. I'm not going to say that I don't believe in the MCAS. And I know Ann will give me the looks about the MCAS, but that's one part of it. But I also if we look at the Portrait of a Graduate up there, that is another way of defining achievement for kids and actually having a concrete skill set for them to excel. I'm going to stop there. That's the current state of the schools. We will be updating you on, the screen just went blank there. That was my special effect to end this presentation. Other questions or comments?
So Member Cornell reaching out from
She
wherever
was like,
she is, like,
too many slides,
done.
Steve. It's over.
Any questions for Dr. Zarek on the presentation? All right.
Okay. So on the note of teacher diversification, I am very pleased that I'm joined from a galaxy far away by Veronica Salas, who was our intern here from the EDLD program at the Harvard School of Ed. And as part of her work, her project was to help organize our efforts to diversify the workforce, our pipeline work for teachers, for educators, for paraprofessionals. And I wanted her to share with you, as part of her change project, information that she collected and data around our work. So I think Veronica's there. So if we could put the presentation up. Oh, there she is. Okay.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I've had the chance to meet many of you, but as Dr. Zeig mentioned, I had the chance to do my practicum in Salem Public Schools, and one key body of work that he identified early on was teacher diversification efforts. And so what you'll be hearing today in this presentation is the culmination of what I learned by working with the team on the ground to inventory different initiatives. This is to the best of my knowledge based off of what I learned this year. So with that, I wanted to go to the next slide and we could talk about some of the headway that we made with Priority 2. Although there has been a bit of a dip in our teacher diversification percentages, there is much to celebrate in terms of the work that the team in Salem is doing to impact this area. For starters, Salem is a 3-time recipient of the Teacher Diversification Grant Award from DESE. Salem also, this past year, was one of 7 districts selected for the DESE's new grant program, the Registered Teacher Apprenticeship, which will, in the coming years, allow folks in Salem to earn credits for their work experience in the special education field. Another cause for celebration is some of Salem's new partnerships. There's the work that's being done with Middlesex Community College to support paraprofessionals in earning their associates, and also a new relationship with La Universidad Autónoma de Santo Domingo, which will next year allow 2 educators from the Dominican Republic to join the team in Salem. Next slide, please. So in December, you all heard an HR update, and I know that we've talked a little bit about the dip, But I do think that there is a lot to celebrate when we look at Salem's trajectory across the past 5 years. We see that the percentage of staff of color has doubled from 10 to over 20%. Our percentage of paraprofessionals has tripled, and we've also almost seen a threefold increase in our percentage of teachers, although we have gone down a bit from 17 to 15 in the past school year. You'll see in one of the appendices that during that same time, the percentage of diverse educators in the state has flatlined. And so while we still might not be where we want to be per the strategic plan, there is room to celebrate. But one of the challenges that Dr. Zeig presented to me was to get under the hood and to figure out how we got here. And so on the next slide, you'll kind of see some of the ways that I approached the work. A key ask was to map out the different initiatives that are going on in Salem. This is work that spans multiple departments and different owners, and so I sat down with different teams to get an understanding of the work that they're leading. And so one way to think about it is in terms of the stakeholders that each initiative is targeting, whether it's high school students, paraprofessionals, teachers, or leaders. Underneath each of those stakeholder groups, you'll see some examples, just examples of different diversification initiatives that are intended to move people along in the pipeline. And on the next slide, you'll see another way of making sense of the current state in Salem. And this is by looking at diversification initiatives by institution, the institution that drives most of the work. And so obviously, there's Salem Public Schools, our higher education partners, and then also different entities in the foundation and nonprofit space. And so what you'll see on the next couple slides is just some highlights to that end in using that organizational scheme. Some of the work that we wanted to draw attention to is our in-district programming at the high school. This coming year, the early college education pathway will now be reaching students in 3 different grades, 70 students, which is an accomplishment, and that's growth. There's also the longstanding CTE early childhood program, which 49 students had the opportunity to engage in last year with the hopes of graduating with an industry credential. Beyond that programming, there's also workshops that the team at the high school is working on to expand the pathways for students and different experiential learning opportunities. For example, next year, the Salem High School students are going to have the chance to walk down the hill and work with kiddos at Horace Mann to get a feel for what it's like to have a career in teaching. When we think about our higher ed partners, I'm sure it comes as no surprise to you that Salem State is prominent on this list. Beyond the practicum, which is the supervised teaching experience that candidates complete, some of them in Salem, Salem State also has an Inspire Ed program that also places aspiring educators of color in Salem. That's a pre-practicum opportunity where folks are hired, aspiring educators, students really, are hired by Salem and paid at a BA rate, and they're placed at a single site throughout the year. Another initiative that's happening is the one that I mentioned earlier with Middlesex. Next year, 3 of Salem's paras are going to have the chance to engage in this program, which has proved to be a promising strategy historically in Salem in terms of boosting the number of teachers of color. Next slide, please. And then lastly, when we think about community-based organizations, we have Leap for Education, providing college application support, interviewing prep, resume writing for our early college students. We have Latinos for Education. They have teacher and leader fellowships. They conduct advocacy trainings, and I've been on the call with a couple folks who are also working to create communications materials to really change students' mind about what a career in education can be and mean for them in the future. Beyond that, the Smith Family Foundation has not only invested in the TA paraprofessional program at Middlesex, but they've also poured into the early college education pathway at Salem High, which is allowing Dr. Kirby to do some of the work that she's doing next year. And then while there is Salem Public Schools is in the pipe for another grant with the Bar Foundation, I did want to call the committee's attention to the work that we did in 2021 with the New Teacher Project as a part of a Bar Foundation grant, which really allowed us to conduct a landscape analysis and might be relevant to some of what Member Cruz was mentioning earlier. So what does this mean for our bottom line and our percentage of teachers of color? On this graph, one of the things that was personally interesting to me was what the numbers looked like at the school level. And so you'll see the past 4 years by school in Salem, the percentage of teachers of color. The district average is in the dark gray. That has the numbers pointing to it. We have Bentley at the top with nearly 45% of its staff as teachers of color. As Dr. Zeig mentioned, you have Collins in the light blue, and something that seemed promising to me was Horace Mann in the yellow, a straight upward trajectory in terms of percentage of teachers of color. But I think the most striking thing from this graph is the close correspondence between that Salem High, the light purple, and the district average, and that's because Salem High has most of our teachers, and so when you take the average, we'll closely, as a district, likely follow what we see at the high school. And so, next slide, please. Here are a list of questions that the district is thinking about, some of which we've already touched on in this meeting. Number one, first and foremost, is which of these initiatives have actually resulted in diverse hires? What's the efficacy of some of this work? How diverse is our applicant pool? Does it vary by position or by school? And then at what rate are educators and staff of color leaving the district or transferring? Does it vary by school? How can we build the data infrastructure to have access to this information? And then when we're thinking about the 2026 strategic plan goals, how might we be more targeted in our approach, thinking at the school level, if not going for the high school? In one of the appendices, you'll see the teacher distribution from last year in the district. It might be a viable path for the district to go after perhaps 3 middle schools. That would be like the same number of educators as the high school in terms of moving the district average. And then this is the local educator diversity council that Member Cruz mentioned, but how does the school committee want to continue to advise and be involved in the process? It seems like what might happen is an educator diversification plan will be created, but what are some of the things that seem more salient to you all? And then lastly, how can we ensure that we have the infrastructure to circle back to some of our high school students who are engaged in programming and recruit them to come work in our schools? And so with that, there's some data in the appendices. You'll see teacher retention. I won't go through all of this, but teacher retention in general by school for the last year. And so this is just information for you all, and this is the stagnating state teacher diversity numbers, but I just wanted to give a big thank you to you all for letting me learn and to serve in Salem this year. And with that, I'm happy to answer questions, talk about what I learned.
Thank you very much. This is very thorough. Appreciate it. I'll open up to questions from the members. Member Cruz?
Just first and foremost, thank you, Veronica, for your efforts here. It was a pleasure to meet you while you were with the district, and it's always good to take a look underneath the hood to just see what progress has been made since the last time we really examined that TNTP report. I remember we were already thinking, what's the profession going to look like 5 years from now, and whether or not we'd be able to actually reach this goal. So to know that we've made progress, and I know we've had a slight dip, I think that's natural, and that's what we're seeing throughout the rest of the state. And there's a lot of different trends that explain kind of what's happening within the teaching profession, with a lot of districts having to make cuts. And I think that the places where I see the most promise, it continues to be para-to-educator pipeline. And I think that that's one place where, if we think about the charge of an educator diversity council and an educator diversification plan, we do have to think about the supports that we provide to paras to make sure that, if they're on the track for, the para-to-teacher pipeline, that they understand, what supports are available for MTEL, alternative certification, and, I think them being more experienced might lead to us being able to retain them a lot longer. The student to educator piece is, I think, the place where I've spent the most energy over the last couple of years with you, Dr. Zreich, and I think the things that we put in the contract are very strong. What I would just name is in the same pilot that was being done with the Smith Family Foundation, Lynn and both Lynn Public Schools and Lawrence Public Schools, in their particular projects, they had more early career exposure opportunities for the students. So I think that the shadowing at Horseman is great. Obviously, with Lynn, there's the opportunity for the Lynn Tech students to engage in more hours that are tied to like different certifications, which I think is beneficial. But I know that the other two high schools were planning on going a little bit deeper with career exposure opportunities. And Lawrence this summer is already offering paraprofessional opportunities to their students at their high school that are in the early college pathway. I got an update from their principal over the weekend, and that was really powerful. So I just think, as we think about the student to educator pipeline, I think the college credits, early college is super important. But I think what Lawrence in particular and Lynn have been doing in terms of providing those first job type of opportunities in education, like that's what's going to keep the students hooked and really being able to make an informed decision about whether or not that's something that they want to do. So I think, Steve, as you think about like how we engage with partners in the community, those organizations that might have youth jobs, I know that like Leap for Education has talked about building community to educator kind of pipelines. It might be worth us thinking about like how do we convene the places in which we can be providing our students over the summer education-based experiences that really help them make informed decisions about whether or not this is something that they want to do long term. So those are the two places that I see the most promise without question. And then I do think from a governance perspective, just double clicking on the fact that I think we need to start the work in earnest of, putting together the Diversity Council and getting folks together to really talk about how they can support the strategy.
Member Kimball?
Thanks, and thanks, Veronica. This was really helpful. I think the only thing that I would flag is, and I think it's sort of a bit connected to what Member Cruz was talking about in terms of the high school student to teacher pathway or to educator pathway. And I think it's making sure that we're collecting a lot of good data on it, because it's one of those like slow burns in terms of its efficacy that you're not going to see the gains of it for, if especially for some, you're starting to engage them their freshman and sophomore year. And so you're talking about maybe a minimum of 8 years until you ever see them work in your public schools. And I think that can be really challenging to kind of get the support to continue to dedicate the funding and the resources, whether it's from the state or from the community. And so really keeping track of like how many SPS grads have you engaged with that came as a result of it? How are you staying connected to them through college? Because it could very well not be working, but I know from my personal experience, we are starting to see some gains from it. We are staying connected with them to and through college. And having that information, I think, will just be really important because paras and teachers who are already in the system, it's a lot easier to track them, but high school students, it can be harder too. So.
Any further comments or reflections? Well, thank you again for the report and for all the work you put into it while you were with us. Steve?
Thanks.
Yep. Just next, quickly, thank you, Veronica. I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure working with her this year. I gave you an update, an MSBA update. Today's a written one. I just want to note that we did have an important milestone. On July 16th, I had a chance to present, along with the design team, to the Facilities Assessment Subcommittee of the Massachusetts School Building Authority. It's a mouthful. And it was a very productive meeting, and it's a key milestone in the sense that the subcommittee does ask us a series of questions about our preliminary design ideas, the educational program, and they pressure test, or they have a number of questions and topics that were discussed. And you can see the bullets in this memo that I think you all have in front of you that lays out the questions that they had and the ideas they had for the project. We now expect the full board of the MSBA to vote on and approve this preferred schematic report on Wednesday, August 27th, which is, again, another step in the process to moving towards a final design for the school. We also had a chance to meet with the MSBA staff on Friday, and they, just to go over timeline and next steps, what folks should know is the next step in the process is that we are that the MSBA is continuing to review our schematic design submittal, and this includes the basis of the project cost, but it looks at like the actual design of the building. And between now and December, we're going to have a back and forth with the MSBA around what the final design is going to look like for the facility. So you're going to hear a lot of back and forth. They'll give us feedback. We'll have to make adjustments. They'll look at the special education spaces, or the Department of Ed will look at that. They'll look at the CTE spaces. And we hope that in December, by December, we have to submit the final design for the building. And then they're expected to vote on February 26th, February 2026, sometime in February 2026, on accepting our design. And then we'll go into the debt exclusion process. But between now and then, we are going to start engaging the community. They're already going to do some tabling at community events, so that community members, residents can understand the project to the extent possible. In the coming weeks and months, we have to start informing the public about what this building is going to look like. We'll also be taking feedback from them in the coming weeks. But the project is moving. I did finally just hear that in the meeting we had with the MSBA on Friday, they have a scheduled opening of the building. Anybody want to guess when the scheduled opening of the new building is going to be?
The mayor's face right now.
They said they gave it fall of 2030 is when the building would open. Would not be absolutely complete because there'd be site work that would have to continue to be done, but the building would open to students and staff in 2030, in fall of 2030. So believe it or not, it's in sight. Even though that's 5 years away from now, it's still in sight, and that was the first I actually heard a date for the new facility. I don't know if there's anything you want to add, Mayor, to it, but a lot of progress has been made over the last couple of weeks as we move this project forward.
I'll just add, so you mentioned the debt exclusion vote. Our current plan is that we anticipate probably approaching the City Council in January to schedule that vote for May. And approve the bond order for the project costs that will be required from the city. So the building would open in 2030, but construction, if the timetable works out, would start in 2028.
Right. I think that concludes my comments.
Right. Is there a finance and operations report?
Just to reiterate that the facilities team is working hard on our buildings and grounds this summer, and if you would like to visit and see the before, you are more than welcome to. I'm happy to schedule those visits.
Yep.
All set.
All right. Subcommittee reports. Any subcommittees? Nothing to- no. I'm going to share a quick report out on the school committee retreat that took place last month. We had a school committee retreat. We were joined by Paul Mills from Canon Design, who was the organization, the company that led the 2021-2022 facility master plan. And the purpose of the retreat was really to discuss the continuation of charting a path forward for our students and educators and community to have the best possible school district to serve them. We are facing increasing costs as a district for student transportation, special education, employee health insurance, facilities maintenance, and more, along with potential cuts in federal funding. The situation is extremely challenging. So the committee met as a retreat with the goals of reviewing the elementary school options that were outlined in that facility master plan, to start a strategic discussion about the elementary school programs and facilities, to review the current conditions, projected enrollment, school capacity, and the facilities across our district, and to explore future options or potential options for future implementation and setting goals for the next steps in this work. During the retreat, the committee, and we did approve the minutes for that retreat at tonight's meeting, so this is information that's detailed in those minutes as well, but I'll just reiterate it for the public. The school committee identified a number of areas of consensus and next steps. Specifically, we shared a commitment to invest in and expand, where possible, our most sought-after programs. So that's our programs like our dual language program, early childhood options, school programs offering our innovative teaching and learning models. We reviewed the immediate need to identify a new location for our alternative high schools, New Liberty Innovation and Salem Prep, which are currently renting space at the Witch City Mall. The committee prioritized strategies that will make the most efficient use of our facilities district-wide. For example, in some of the data that we looked at, right now only one of our schools is being used at capacity, and we also reviewed the facility conditions of our existing buildings. So all of this prompted a larger discussion around exploring the learning, extracurricular, and financial benefits of more uniformly sized elementary schools. Right now, among Massachusetts districts that offer K through 5 elementary exclusively, Salem has the second lowest student enrollment per elementary schools in the state. So operating 6 elementary schools of varying enrollments means that our resources and space are not distributed in a consistent or efficient manner, which leads to unnecessary costs for the district. So in the coming months, the school committee will engage with educators in the STU, with members of our school community, and the public in general further for discussions about how we can right-size the elementary schools throughout our district. And lastly, in light of the above topics, the committee revisited its ongoing deliberations around the current inter-district school choice system and how it might best be reformed to maintain district-wide socioeconomic balance and address the rapidly rising transportation costs that the district faces. So more work and more opportunities for public engagement and input are still to come on this important discussion. It's deeply connected to the actions that this committee has taken over the past years, including modifications of the Stalton School, the advancement of the new high school project, which we've just discussed, the expansion of the pre-K partnership, among many, many other steps and initiatives, all intended to ensure that our public school district is moving forward in a manner that's thoughtful and strategic, and that's fiscally responsible and sustainable, but above all, that it's serving all of our kids to help them reach their full potential. And that's the report on the retreat. I don't know if anybody else wants to add anything further, but. No. Motions and resolutions. Our first item is a change in the school committee meeting date for September. Is this for this?
That's, yeah. The date was to move the September 22nd meeting to Wednesday, September 24th.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Motion made by Member Cruz, seconded by Member Miranda. All in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. The matter carries unanimously. Next item is a resolution for July 4th, 2025. Member Cruz?
Thank you, Mayor. This is a request that came from Councilor Davis regarding a resolution that I believe was taken from the Boston City Council regarding July 4th. The councilor had reached out asking if this was something that school committee members had wanted to sign on to. I had mentioned to him, based on when he submitted the request, that we couldn't do so because it would be a violation of the open meeting law. It would need to be on a regular school committee agenda, and then we could vote to sign on collectively. I think at this point we've learned a good lesson earlier in the year just with respect to that. So my recommendation is that at this point, the letter isn't germane. The timing was for July 4th, and I've mentioned to the counselor that, I think with more time, the committee could have considered this in our June meeting. So I'm assuming that he'll come back to us sometime in June. So I suggested that we put it on the calendar just to bring it forth to committee members, just to flag it for you all if folks wanted to take an action on it. I wouldn't recommend it for today because I think it would have to be contextualized to what we do as a school district and to just ensure that, it's what we want to communicate. But, otherwise, I feel totally comfortable saying, come back to us next year when it's germane.
Any further? Any further announcements from committee members? Alternate committee member Blue. No further comments or announcements.
No, Randy missed all of this.
Any further?
Okay, that's a first.
We're going to pass
I'm
them.
going to chase the gavel if I throw it.
Well, I don't want
This is the
All right.
best meeting I've ever done.
to be passed.
Okay. Is there another motion?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
Motion made by member Miranda, seconded by member Campbell. All in favor? Any opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.